All right, so in the first video, I talked essentially about what your readers are looking for. And they're really just looking for a well-organized, well-written, and thoughtful essay. And in the second video, I talked about the first paragraph. What we're going to do really quick is a quick review, a couple of updates, and then we get into the second, third, and fourth paragraphs. All right? So, first thing, you got to make sure that your computer is compatible with the College Board's, with their stuff. So you're supposed to log into that website and make sure everything's good before your actual test day. And then also sometime, probably today if not already, you should have gotten your, or you will get your AP exam ticket. You'll need that ticket in order to take your test on Wednesday. Now the test starts at 11 a.m. Okay? Not at 11:30, not 11:15, at 11 a.m. Which is why they want you to log in at least 30 minutes early, so that way you've got everything set up, your computer's going. Yeah, excellent, right? Please remember that this year you are allowed to use whatever notes you want. And so I would say have whatever you think is necessary right there in front of you, so that way it can benefit you in some way. Good. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Like I said earlier, all readers really want is to read a good essay from you. But good is something that's defined by, is this good enough for us to give you college credit? So you don't want to be writing at the third grade level, and you want to make sure that whatever you say is thoughtful and supportable. Smooth writing. That's what the exercises on the crossword puzzle on combining sentences was all about, to try to elevate your writing from this to this to this. You should be fine. You all write well. Shouldn't be a problem. Well written, thoughtful, and organized. Now, well written and thoughtful, you guys can handle. Organized, that's where you need to step back a little bit and make sure before you start writing that you know where you're going. All right? Because if you just start writing as soon as you're done reading the prompt, the organization may be there because you have that kind of mind, but it might not be because you just jumped into it. So take a step back and go over, where is it I'm going to go? Now this year, because it's online, you're not going to have the paper in front of you so you can mark it up and so on, which usually helps as a guide. But have some sort of scratch paper there off to the side of your computer, so that way you can plot out your essay. I'd say take the first 10 minutes to read the passage and think where you're going before you start going there. Okay? So read the passage, get a sense of what it is you might want to do, plot it out, and then go. I mean, because it always says on there they want an organized essay, which means you've shown some thought about where you want to go before you actually go there. All right? Don't rush. Remember, we've been working with this idea, copyright Robert Boyd. Play dirty. Remember that? The play is about the first paragraph, where I asked you to philosophize about what you think the passage is essentially about, and then the dirty has to do with the body paragraphs. Okay? So philosophize, that's where I said in review, obviously, what do you think the passage is essentially about? Went over the idea that they keep coming back, the College Board does, to the same general concept. Why? Because that's what life is about. Death, love, sadness, education, technology, adversity, change. Those ones that we wrote opening paragraphs for. When you read that when you read that passage, decide first, what did it seem to be about? And then philosophize on that. What are your thoughts on death? Now, if you've already got your opening paragraphs like we did, there beside you, you've got your thoughts already laid down, and you can begin to hook it up to the actual passage. And then the biggest fault that I'm seeing in some of the in some of the AP practice essays that you've written for me is that your thesis statement, the thing that we've been working on as a Prose statement, they're sometimes a little more subtle than they should be. You get 1 point of the 6 points for your essay from that opening paragraph, and it needs to be that your thesis is clear, that your reader knows what you're trying to say, where you're trying to lead him or her, and so make sure you have a clear thesis. Some of you keep saying, no, that's not true, let me take that back. A couple of you are still saying displays, this, that, or conveys. No, use the word argues. In this passage, the author argues that. If you just do that, use that Prose statement thing that we've talked about, you'll be great. Because now I, as a reader, know what you think the passage is trying to say, what the author's message in the passage is. You do that, you'll be good. And then, so that first paragraph, the play part, philosophizing and laying out your argument. Paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, that's where the dirty comes in, right? Because they always ask you to write about literary techniques. Well, ones that always come to mind are diction, imagery, repetition, and tone. There are lots of other things that you can talk about, obviously. Syntax, a specific kind of literary device. Like if you notice that there is, what do they call it when you don't use ands all the time? Polysyndeton or asyndeton, tons of metaphor, tons of simile. Those will work as well. But if you can look at diction, imagery, repetition, and tone, and know that that's what you're going in with before you start the exam, I think it'll make it easier for you, right? Let's see. So your second, third, and fourth paragraphs, you should attack one topic in some way. Now let's say that you use diction. Okay, great, diction. Diction is word choice. Now for all of these things, you shouldn't just mention the words that are being used, or the images that are being used, the repetition that's being used, whatever. You should try to fit them all under a larger umbrella to show that you think the author is trying to work with these words and images and so on in some particular way. So for example, if your second paragraph deals with the idea of diction, you say, the diction is dark, frightening, and attempts to put a sense of terror in the reader. Okay. Now I have a sense of the umbrella that all the diction falls under. Terrifying diction. Okay, that's good. Or you could say the diction is light and breezy, full of love. Okay? And that's true, because if you have a lot of soft S's, soft C's, it does read differently than if you have a lot of harsh sounding words. Okay? But then the next thing is, after you've got that umbrella that your words fall under, that your images fall under, that your repetition falls under, you need to be able to answer the question, so what? Who cares that the author has these words that are dark, frightening, and full of terror? What does it do for you as the reader? So make sure you mention that. And if you can do that, tie it maybe somehow to what you're talking about in the first paragraph, then everything will be great. You can introduce that second paragraph by simply saying, let me take that back. The second paragraph can start simply by you referring to how you think the author is trying to highlight the argument made in the first paragraph. So the second paragraph can start out very simply. The first way the author tries to argue his point is through the use of diction that is harsh, that is dark, frightening, and meant to fill the reader's heart with terror. That's fantastic. Do that, and you'll be good. Third paragraph, you can just simply say, the second way that the author tries to bolster his argument is through the use of imagery that blah, 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 blah. And fourth paragraph, and lastly, that's terrible. And the third way, or the last way that And the last way, the third way that the author tries to convey his message is through the use of a tone that brings a sense of sadness and apprehension to the reader. Once you qualify what the different literary techniques, how they all sort of are lumped together in some way, you know, the diction being frightening, the tone being apprehensive, and whatever, it makes it all read so much better. So remember, first paragraph, play. You philosophize on a word that you think is at the heart of what the passage is about, and then you lay out your argument. Remember, what the heck? First couple of sentences are on your word, then you bring in what literally happens in the passage. You know? In this passage, we see a man we see a young man as he contemplates burying a dead wolf. Whatever, you know, the crossing passage. But then after that, bring in your Prose statement, that thing that gets to the heart of the argument. And be specific, be clear, don't leave it for your reader to guess. And then, dirty, diction, imagery, repetition, or tone. You can use all sorts of other ones, but if you stick with those four, three of those four, you'll be good to go. I think that covers it all. In the next video, we'll talk about conclusions. But if you remember what I said in class, conclusions, we'll talk about it in the next video.